This talk was given by Roshi Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is Saturday, March 7th, 2026. We will be returning to a reading from Finding Your Buddha Smile, Coming Home to What Zen is Really All About, my latest book, and we'll take up the next chapter. But before we do so, I want to share with you a little bit that came up for me recently on Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, simply because of the difficulties of the time that we're dealing with and how often a sense of overwhelmingness or impossibility of the task of seeing a truly human culture on this earth, a culture not given way to greed, anger, ignorance, a culture of compassion and kindness, of insight and reciprocity with all living things. How daunting a task that can seem. So here's a bit of what I wrote. I think it's from maybe have appeared in various teishos in the past. The word love is little used in Buddhism and hardly mentioned in Zen. But if you lean in close enough, you'll hear its soundless sound. Why else would a bodhisattva go to all that trouble for the sake of sentient beings? Blake hit the nail on the head when he wrote, "Eternity is in love with the productions of time." Eternity is in love with the productions of time. Avalokiteshvara, the thousand-armed Bodhisattva of compassion, is the active form of totally immense, totally selfless, non-dual love. Such love is not mere sentiment. Each of the Bodhisattva's 1,000 arms ends in a hand with an open eye of awakened, transcendental, non-dual wisdom. Excuse me. Non-dual wisdom. Without that eye in the palm, who knows what damage 1,000 arms might do? The Bodhisattva, excuse me, has 11 heads as well that can see everywhere. How did that happen? How did he get, or she get, all those heads and arms and eyes? Was it out of wishing for it, or what exactly? Buddhist legend presents it like this. Ages ago, the great Bodhisattva vowed to empty all the hells of suffering beings. Through countless eons, the Bodhisattva labored at this chosen task, and in the end, working hard, actually did it. The hells were emptied. The whole universe knew peace. The flames, the bubbling cauldrons of blood, the roars of demons, the clanking chains, the cries of the tormented, all of that ended. All the suffering beings were freed, the hells completely empty. But then, an instant later, all the hells were completely filled again. Demons roared, cauldrons bubbled, chains clanked, victims screamed, cried, moaned. At that awful moment, the Bodhisattva of compassion's head split into 11 heads. Now he could see suffering beings in every realm, in every hell. His 2 arms shattered into 1,000 arms. Now he could reach into any realm and bring whatever help might work. So out of this total hard-won failure, out of immense despair, came not withdrawal or negation or giving up, but rather only even greater commitment, greater skill. As Wu Men says, in a totally different context, the failure is wonderful indeed. The failure is wonderful indeed. And so the great Bodhisattva kept at it and keeps at it still. Leonard Cohen in the, sorry, trying to make an entry here. Leonard Cohen, in the song Heart with No Companion, wrote, "Now I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere. Now I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere." Isn't that the voice of the Bodhisattva of Great Compassion? Isn't that exactly how it really is? So, a little bit on failure, trying again, getting up after falling down is really the essence of the way. And we just keep at it, no matter how many times things seem to go awry. And in our world, they may continue to go awry for a very long time. We just keep at it. And every failure renews a commitment and gives us a chance to develop and mature greater skill and dig deeper into really manifesting, not just thinking about compassion. So, with that as a basis, we'll turn to today's chapter in Finding Your Buddha's Smile, Coming Home to What Zen is really all about. My new book published by Sumeru Books, and we'll do chapter 7 today. Okay, but how do I find peace of mind? When asked the meaning of Bodhidharma's coming from the West, Chao Chu answered, "The oak tree in the front garden." How wonderful! But what made Bodhidharma's teaching so important, so noted and valuable, if, like the Buddha, we've been moved to leave our inherited palaces and find the solution or the foundation to or of happiness and peace of mind? Then koan 41 of Gateless Barrier, Bodhidharma and peace of mind, can be our guide and our ally. And here's how it goes. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. The second ancestor, Hui-k'o, which would be Eka in Japanese, having cut off his arm, stood there in the snow. He said, "Your disciple's mind has no peace as yet. I beg you, Master, to please put it to rest." Bodhidharma said, "Bring me your mind, and I will put it to rest." The second ancestor said, "I have searched for my mind, but I cannot find it." Bodhidharma said, "Then I have completely put it to rest for you." Wu Men's commentary. The broken-toothed old foreigner proudly came over 100,000 miles across the sea. This was like raising waves where there's no wind. Bodhidharma could enlighten only one disciple, and even he was a cripple. Well, Shansan Lang does not know 4 words. Wu Men's verse, coming from the West and directly pointing. This great affair was caused by the transmission. The troublemakers who created the stir in Zen circles are, after all, these two. So, trouble in mind is a standard blues trope, but peace of mind, what is that? How do we find and retain it? Many have tried by opting for such entitlements as wealth and power. Yet the reality of impermanence suggests that such attempts can never be as successful as one might hope. Closing our eyes, shutting our hearts, ignoring, rather than responding to problems and difficulties so as to keep them at arm's length outside our door or beyond our borders, are self-defeating. What kind of life will we have when we've curled into fetal balls, hunched protectively against all we imagine lined up to steal our supposed due? Where's the fulfillment, the peace of mind, the joy in that? Where's the smile? In time, we all know too well, deep down, that the big bad wolf will come to every door and blow the house down. Almost every house. What's the secret of that last little pig's house, the one made of brick? What is it about that house that offers security, solidity, peace of mind, Does it lie in its literal heft, or is that a shibboleth? Seamus Heaney's poem, Glenmore Revisited 5, Lustral Sonnet, says that only pure words and deeds secure the house. Only pure words and deeds secure the house. This is good news, for in it ethics and peace of mind are aligned, which is why Zen practice emphasizes that we uphold the Buddhist precepts of ahimsa, that is non-harming, actualized by the 10 grave precepts of not killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, selfishness, praising ourselves while downgrading others, wallowing in anger, emphasizing the misdeeds of others, or failing to cherish the 3 treasures of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and such. Peace of mind is not simply the goal, it is the way. Living well, we create fewer obstacles for ourselves. Yet, if peace of mind is our aim, there's a step beyond that to something even more fundamental than simply, as great as they are, pure words and deeds. Case 37 of the Book of Serenity, Shoyoroku, offers this. Kuei Shan asked Yang Shan, suppose a man asks you, how about one who says all sentient beings are in disorderly karmic consciousness and have no base to rely upon? How would you treat him? Yang Shan said, if a man appears, I call to him. When he turns his head, instantly I say, what is that? I wait while he hesitates, and then I say to him, there's not only disorderly karmic consciousness, but there is no base to rely upon. Kuei Shan said, oh, good. Oh, good. I hear a subtle resonance here with Genesis, and God said it was good. Might you hear it too? Regardless, we can all simply savor that fundamental affirmation. Oh, good, indeed. So how did Bodhidharma fulfill his vow to free suffering beings and help them realize peace of mind? The core of the Buddhist teaching is the ending of suffering and realization of fundamental peace of mind, whatever comes. Again, this does not imply remaining stolidly unmoved and always calm in the face of life's manifold challenges. Peace of mind is so central that time and again history reveals that people have been willing to sell their very souls to get it, rather than feel exposed, naked, alone, and vulnerable. History reveals that human beings have willingly sacrificed freedom, independence, even their humanity, and accepted narrowly destructive, even self-destructive views in order to be relieved of their fundamental anxiety and gain this precious peace of mind. Cult leaders have proclaimed, follow me. There's no need to think for yourself and needlessly worry. Follow me, do what I say, and you will have peace of mind. Nuremberg gave the lie to that. Following orders was neither salvation nor legal excuse. Perhaps even the slavish mouth of Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, while hoping for the best, did not rest truly easy in the wee hours of the night. Neither trying to ignore the actualities of impermanence, nor aiming to stay always calm, whatever difficulties may come our way, seem to work, except in the very short run. Eventually the dam breaks, and the world in its stunning diversity and glorious disorder comes pouring back in. Still, if you think there's a way to shut down and avoid the indignity of being human, of being conscious, and at the same time aware of our inability to escape aging, sickness, injustice, death, then be my guest. Try it. Maybe you're the chosen one, destined to do what's never been done. Live forever, always happy, always well. But if that's not the case, it might be worth exploring this encounter of Bodhidharma and Hui-k'o, a man with a troubled mind who went on to become Bodhidharma's most noted heir. It is how and where Zen Buddhism begins. A refresher. Bodhidharma's teaching is traditionally said to rest upon these 4 principles. A special transmission outside sutras. No dependence on words and phrases. Directly pointing to the human mind. Seeing into one's nature and attaining Buddhahood. This differed considerably from the teachings offered by other schools of Buddhism flourishing in early 6th century China. Rather than attempting to add good things like wisdom and compassion to us, Bodhidharma Zen took the radical stance of removing everything in order to help us do what the Buddha himself had done. Realize our original mind of wisdom and compassion. The Buddha mind nature that is already intrinsically ours. And with this realization, find peace of mind. The real house of brick doesn't even need to be assembled. No hammer, tools, or contractors required. No blueprints. Yet, some 500 or 600 years after Bodhidharma, Zen Master Wumen acknowledged that the task, while sounding simple, might not actually be so easy. He wrote, because it is so clear, it takes so long to realize. That's case 7, the Gateless Barrier. Woman koan or mumen koan in Japanese. Because it is so clear, it takes so long to realize. In our time, Leonard Cohen, himself a Zen practitioner, added this great line, some people say it's empty, but that doesn't mean it's light. That's from the song The Street, which is on the album Popular Problems. Some people say it's empty, but that doesn't mean it's light. In this koan, Bodhidharma and Hui-k'o show us how this actually goes. Ironically, the quest for genuine peace must begin with an honest recognition of unpeace. This is how the Buddha himself began. A stunningly abrupt realization of impermanence sent the young prince, Siddhartha Gautama, into a tailspin. After that, nothing, not wealth, pleasure, kingship, entitlement, mattered. All he wanted with his whole being was peace of mind. Nothing else would do. And while, like the Buddha, we may set off on our quest with enthusiasm and begin doing zazen with an initial burst of, I'm meditating, I always meant to, and now I am, and it's wonderful. Unlike him, we may also rather quickly become disillusioned as we begin to see how jumpy, inattentive, scattered, and self-absorbed, in short, unpeaceful, our minds truly are. We can think that Zen practice is taking us in the wrong direction. Not so. We are simply seeing more clearly than usual and without evasion what our minds actually do. We are seeing the actual minute-by-minute workings of our own brand of unpeace, which is exactly the right place to begin. If we accept that the Buddha knew what he was talking about when at his bursting forth into enlightenment, he exclaimed that all beings are Buddha, we are personally motivated to find out what his astonished and astonishing words mean. All beings means me. But look at me. How can I be a Buddha? Such questioning, such doubt, which includes a willingness to question our most closely held, even unconscious assumptions of is or are faith in action. Like Hui-k'o, we find ourselves painfully aware of our own troubled minds. Like him, we find ourselves standing in the snow, exposed to the elements, shivering with cold, desiring the warmth of peace. If the Buddha could have gone around saying words that would enlighten people, he would have done it. Compassion was his whole mind. He couldn't. Nor could Bodhidharma, the Buddha's last heir in India, his first in China, nor can any teacher. A teacher can point the way, but we ourselves must do the work. Zen practice is not going to steer us around difficult questions. If we desire peace, and like all the others, going back to the Buddha himself, we will have to plunge into the questions that disturb us most. Why is there injustice? Why is there greed and evil? Why are there wars and climate destruction? Why misogyny, cruelty, racism? Why indeed, if we're all Buddhas, is there suffering, anxiety, lack of peace, and all the unnamed troubles that we will uncover in our lives? Why is there even birth and death? Why don't we just walk around enlightened and free? More to the point, why was I born? Why am I here? Why must I sicken, age, and die? What is the root of it all? Paradoxically, all such troubling questions are themselves the beginning of genuine peace of mind, if we don't turn from them. This is not saying we should cling to or obsess over them either. It's not either or. Hui-k'o, a Buddhist monk, had read and studied Buddhist texts and sutras, had meditated, chanted. Yet despite all this, he was honest enough to acknowledge that his mind was not yet at peace. When he heard of this newly arrived teacher from India, the land of the Buddha, he experienced an upsurge of faith and set off to find him. The result is the legendary encounter presented in the koan. It is old school, reminiscent of ancient Buddhist Jataka tales in which the Buddha, in distant past lives, gave pieces of his flesh to a hawk, his eyes to a beggar, a blind beggar, his body to a starving tigress, his blood to a demon, in order to simply receive a single verse of truth. Hui-k'o, for the sake of that same truth, cuts off his arm. Yikes! What does it take to work with a teacher? Is there something we must prove? How dramatic does it have to be? The teacher looks for sincerity. Is the student acting meaningfully on their aspiration or merely offering lip service? It need not be extreme, but it should be honest. We should do what we realistically can, recognizing what's no longer needed and letting it go is key. Ending wasteful or destructive habits, making time for zazen in our busy schedules, are practical ways of cutting off an arm, sacrificing what is lesser for what is the greater. In the early days of Zen practice in the West, being young and having fed ourselves on stories of Zen monks and nuns who did wild and crazy things to gain enlightenment and achieve peace of mind, we too did wild and crazy things in imitation of their excesses, like not sleeping more than 20 minutes in an entire 7-day sesshin, or sitting a 7-day sesshin in full lotus posture despite excruciating pain, or walking barefoot on gravel in ice and snow to stay awake at night during sesshin. Back then, no one yet had careers or committed relationships or children. Well, most of us, My wife and I were married with an infant son when we arrived in Rochester and began formal practice, and so along with one or two other couples, we were the exceptions. Most others were free to live out their fantasies of being like the monks and nuns of old. But most of us were young and immature. Few yet had lives that meant something, even to themselves. Enthusiastically misguided as we were at the same time, doing some of these things, and yes, even as lay people, Rose and I did them. Such were our early times in Western Zen. We discovered that we were capable of more than we thought or been conditioned to believe that we could. In the Three Pillars of Zen, Philip Kapleau, after experiencing intense physical and mental makyo during a 7-day session, reports being told, "You are more strong than you know, Kapleau-san. You are more strong than you know." Amen to that. All beings are Buddha. This is no joke. But extremes are not the point. Committing in Zazen to the count, the breath, the koan is sitting in the snow. Thoughts like snowflakes keep spinning and whirling, but we stay settled with the 1, 2, 3, up to 10 of the breath count, with mu or hu or any other koan or inquiry, no longer aimlessly drifting. While we don't literally cut off an arm, and the koan is not suggesting that we should, we do cut off what we may, at least initially, hold almost as dear. Our me-oriented, self-centered habits of mind. Not by suppressing or blocking them. That doesn't work. It's a vicious cycle. Not by suppressing or blocking them, and not by pretending that they don't exist, but by consciously attending to them, seeing them so clearly that they lose their grip. It takes work. It takes attention, attention, attention. But if we keep returning to the practice, to the count, the breath, the koan, the inquiry, keep absorbing ourselves in the practice, eventually we will find the habitually self-centered mind fading, falling away, as wind and rain, sun, moon, stars, street noises, the cat's meow, all walk in, all wake up. We cut off an arm by showing up for the actualities of practice, inconvenient as they may be. In an email conversation with a teacher I respect who presented the essence of the way as waking up and growing up, I added the initial step of showing up, to which he agreed. So Zen's actualization of the path of the Bodhisattva, the growing up beyond self-centeredness being, when stripped to its essence, is showing up, waking up, growing up. Showing up, waking up, growing up. And it requires, as all true paths must, a degree of sacrifice. The writer and pioneering aviator Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, after returning from a reconnaissance mission during World War II, he'd never expected to survive, wrote, "The essential act possesses a name. Its name is sacrifice. Sacrifice signifies neither amputation nor repentance. It is in essence an act. It is the gift of oneself to the being of which one forms part. Only he can understand what a farm is, what a country is, who shall have sacrificed part of himself to his farm or country, fought to save it, struggled to make it beautiful. Only then will the love of farm or country fill his heart. A country or a farm is not the sum of its parts. It's the sum of its gifts. Or we might add a sangha or a maturing Zen practice. It's the sum of the gifts we offer to it, of ourselves, our time, our energy, our thoughts, our practice. Yamada Roshi seems to have often made the point that the essence of Zen is the maturing of character. Kapleau Roshi often said to accomplish a certain goal, you must become a certain person. But once you have become such a person, you may no longer need to attain that goal. To accomplish a certain goal, you must become a certain person. But once you have become such a person, you may no longer need to attain that goal. While Zen practice involves a degree of discipline or rigor, it simultaneously opens us to raindrops and falling leaves, to painful things and happy things, to angry faces and joyous faces, to trees, crows, and cats. Life, our own half-forgotten, half-remembered life, steps intimately, which means vividly, in. This is the point. Years ago in a workshop I attended led by the noted poet, translator, and author Robert Bly, he said something that stuck with me. It was wryly stated and to the point. What he said was, if you just go with the flow, you always end up in the bleeping Gulf of Mexico. And he didn't say bleeping. If you just go with the flow, you always end up in the bleeping Gulf of Mexico. There you'll be. If you just go with the flow. Back in the very places you've already had enough of. In Zen, the carp leaps upstream against the flow to become the dragon it has always potentially been. Trees planted in places too sheltered from wind and rough weather never struggle to get a grip, never twist and turn so their roots never get deep or strong. It is the struggle that makes a tree solid and secure. A side note, this is one of the values of koan practice. The very challenges are themselves productive in immeasurable, unexpected ways. When Rose and I were on pilgrimage in China in 2006, we ascended narrow stone stairs carved into the mountainside that led up to Bodhidharma's cave, high above Shaolin Temple. Inside the shallow cave, a nun from the nunnery lower down the mountain handed each pilgrim a stick of incense to offer to the life-size figure of Bodhidharma, which was set in full lotus posture against the cave's back wall. With beard and golden earrings, he lacked only a parrot and cutlass to be a swashbuckling Dharma pirate. Yet inside that little cave, despite all the many legends of Bodhidharma's great, uncompromising ferocity, we felt only peace. Great peace. Bodhidharma didn't seem fierce at all, but rather wonderfully, vastly empty, naturally and selflessly at peace with all and everything. Out of his profound realization of vast emptiness, with nothing to be limited even by calling it holy, rose the selflessness, a peace of mind so complete as to be uncompromising. When Emperor Wu couldn't grasp his Zen, Bodhidharma didn't stick around to explain and land himself imperial patronage. He simply left. William Blake, in darkly industrializing 18th century England, wrote, "What is the price of experience? Do men buy it for a song or wisdom for a dance in the street? No. It is bought with the price of all that a man hath, his house, his wife, his children. Wisdom is sold in the desolate market where none come to buy, and in the withered field where the farmer plows for bread in vain. That's from the Four Zoas. What is the price of experience? Do men buy it for a song or wisdom for a dance in the street? No. It's bought with the price of all that a man hath, his house, his wife, his children. Wisdom is sold in the desolate market where none come to buy, and in the withered field where the farmer plows for bread in vain. Well, Blake clearly knew about Hui-k'o's arm, but he's not trying to terrorize us, not trying to tell us to separate from family, work, citizenship, or friends. Rather, he is reminding us that to know what's what, we have to at least momentarily release our death grip on all we identify with, all dualistic sense of me in here and everything and everyone else out there. We have to let go of the thought of my house, my partner, my children. Let it be the house, the partner, the children, without the my added to it, is what he's talking about. Beyond our unconscious, delusive death grip on what isolates us lies life, not thoughts about life, but real trees, stars, animals, rivers, people, helping us realize this, not simply think of it, but experience it and live it, is what Bodhidharma and Hui-k'o's Zen is all about. Words, letters, holy texts can, of course, be valuable allies on the road to peace of mind. But peace of mind itself comes from practice, from attending so completely to this breath, this count, this koan, this inquiry that we forget ourselves, forget our habitually self-centered self, and all that we inadvertently and sadly create with it, and allow the endlessly and beautifully varied world to step in and realize itself. This is to buy wisdom with all we have. It is the essence of cutting off an arm. Times have changed. We don't need to be snow-sitting, arm-cutting Hui-k'os to realize that peace of mind might be a very good thing. Anxiety is us. 1,500 years ago, 1,000 years after the Buddha, Bodhidharma and Hui-k'o made it clear that lack of peace of mind could not be resolved by study, learning, devotions, or by gaining merit through good deeds, useful and beneficial as such things are. Hui-k'o had already done all those things, done them for years. Rather, it was the practice of looking directly into his own mind and awakening to his own nature, just as the Buddha had done, that brought peace to his troubled mind. While Buddhist teaching tells us we are all Buddhas, it's equally clear that we are not the Buddha. Bodhidharma Zen was and is radical in the primary sense, in the primary meaning of the word radical, which is root. It's primary in the sense of Zen goes to the root. He skillfully brought the Buddhist teaching of awakening down to earth, to where we are, reminding us that we already reside in the place we're searching for, are already looking out from it. All we have to do is realize this. Easier said than done. The core delusion of me in here and everyone and everything else out there forms the linchpin of our personal solar system, an unconscious, unexamined belief that we are the sun and all others, like so many planets, revolve around us. Of course, in so many ways, large and small, every day our own lives show us that this is simply not so. And because it isn't, Our little solar system, no matter how we work at refining and polishing it, never spins quite true. The Buddhist term for such suffering is dukkha. It means the groaning and grinding sound of a wheel not spinning smoothly on its axle. That groaning, grinding sound is the sound of our own lack of peace of mind. It is the sound of wars, climate destruction, racism, misogyny. It is the sound of waking at 3 a.m., anxious about death, about the state of our world, about the well-being of our children. To help us find peace, Bodhidharma tells us we must get radical. While his Dharma does not rely on words or letters, but points directly to mind, which is not intellect, it is not anti-intellectual. Neither Bodhidharma nor Hui-k'o were unlearned. While learning has a deep and vital place in Zen practice, it is no substitute for personal experience of this breath, this sound, this moment, this morning star, this falling snow, this cold night on the mountainside. The koan of Bodhidharma and his heir Hui-k'o plunges us into the heart of it. We are not at peace. How shall we find peace? By the time he came to Bodhidharma, Hui-k'o was middle-aged and had sincerely practiced the Buddhism available to him. Honest enough to admit that he was not yet at peace, his determination to find peace makes him the archetypal Zen student. His search for his own mind in response to Bodhidharma's instruction may have taken minutes, days, weeks, years. The koan doesn't say. All we know is that his answer, "I've searched and can't find the mind," was the outcome. How was this the fulfillment of a search for peace? I can't find this mind. Wumen's commentary on the koan says the broken-toothed old foreigner proudly came over 100,000 miles across the sea. This was like raising waves where there's no wind. Bodhidharma could only enlighten one disciple, and even he was a cripple. Well, Shan Sanlong doesn't know 4 words. Wumen's ironic language strips away attachment to even these lofty ancestors. No cults, please. Calling Bodhidharma broken-toothed removes his halo, even as it burnishes his legend. Buddhist teachers in China, it said, tried to poison him, leaving his front teeth chipped. Raising waves where there's no wind is Wumen's version of, why did he bother to make a big deal over nothing? Raising waves where there's no wind. Why did he bother to make such a big deal over nothing? In short, if we all already have this wonderful mind, why go on so dramatically about it? Plus, if vast emptiness, no holiness is his answer, what's the big deal? How important can nothing be? And he rather outrageously calls Hui-k'o a cripple, not only because he had only one arm, so much for grand gestures, but because he couldn't even find his own mind. I mean, what a loser! Finally, Shan Sanlang, a famously illiterate fisherman of Chinese folklore, while he was illiterate, still caught plenty of fish. The point? Words and letters aren't necessary for us to resolve life's doubts and find peace of mind. In the end, words and letters can't tell us why we're born, why we age, why we must die. They're not going to help us catch our fish. However, illiteracy is not the point, far from it. Not knowing, Zen tradition tells us, is most intimate. It's not blankness, not at all. Ironic language is a creative aspect of Zen tradition and is meant to free us from attachment to even Zen's founding teachers. Zen won't let us settle down with, oh, how great they were, projecting our own innate wisdom, courage, determination, and insight outside ourselves. Instead, inspired by those who came before us, we're encouraged to realize what they realized, then go on as they did to help others do the same. Unfortunately, this kind of language can also be misunderstood. Some old teachers did use harsh methods. Even so, in the hands of a skillful teacher, the method applied really depended on the student and their needs, on what might work for them. Additionally, most disciplines, including crafts back then, were taught in the form of physically and mentally demanding apprenticeships. Zen, a kind of spiritual apprenticeship program based on personal practice with a teacher, would have been no different. Yet the greatest teachers, people like the Buddha himself, like Chao Chu and others, were not harsh. I think of Aiken Roshi. There was nothing remotely harsh about him. Yet in the Doksan room, he was exacting and precise, offering no quarter to laxness or sloppiness. So the koan's archetype is accurate. Zen practice demands courage, commitment, perseverance, but while challenging and at times, given our busy lives, inconvenient, it is also transformative if we keep with it. The hidden good news is that by continuing to practice sincerely, facing the challenges that will come, we develop the very qualities we seek, the very ones we need in order to practice. We learn how to practice by practicing. There's no other way. This is not surprising. We learn how to be partners by partnering. We learn to be parents by parenting. When I was storytelling and teaching storytelling, I would say, I can give you the principles, but after that, the best way to learn how to tell a story is not by staying home endlessly rehearsing, but by getting out in front of live audiences and telling your stories. That's how you really learn what works and what doesn't. Theory only goes so far. I found this to be true of motorcycling as well. Learning the mechanics of riding a motorcycle in the practice yard was simply the bare beginning. It got me a motorcycle license. But becoming a motorcyclist meant leaving the safety of the practice yard and riding in traffic, in rain, in wind, in storms, on rough roads and smooth ones. Once you digested the basics, you had to get out and ride in all kinds of conditions. It was the only way to learn it where you needed to learn it, down in your marrow bone. Later in life, when Hui-k'o was himself a teacher, he got out of the practice yard and wandered seemingly indiscriminately among fishmongers, tea stalls, wine shops, interacting with all sorts of people. Upbraided by establishment types for such unconventional behavior for a religious teacher, he answered his critics saying, as one translation, this is John Wu in the Golden Age of Zen, very quaintly puts it, I do it for the sake of my own soul. I do it for the sake of my own soul. He was like Hotai, who in the 10th and final Oxherding picture enters the busy marketplace with a huge smile on his face and with unburdened hands selflessly helps others. The verse for that from the Three Pillars, you'll find it, is bare-chested, barefooted, he comes into the marketplace. Muddied and dust-covered, how broadly he grins. Without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he swiftly brings to bloom. Eventually, Hui-k'o was murdered by the local governor for threatening the social order with his radical new Zen Buddhism, which said that enlightenment was truly possible for everyone, for all. Legend has it that his body floated upstream against the current, coming to rest in what was later known as his second ancestor's village. Even today, that village knows and is dedicated to the story and teaching of Hui-k'o and Bodhidharma. Rose and I, thanks to Andy Ferguson and Red Pine of South Mountain Tours, along with Signana Graf, Roshi, abbot and founder of the Vermont Zen Center and her Sangha, visited there in 2006, the first group of Westerners to do so. The whole village came out, dressed in Buddhist robes, probably hidden since the Cultural Revolution. It was like walking into an old tale, seeing legends spring to life. Wumen's verse, coming from the West and directly pointing. This great affair was caused by the transmission. The troublemakers who created the stir in Zen circles are, after all, these two. Hui-k'o's desperate search and Bodhidharma's uncompromising response are on the plate of all of us who practice Zen today. It is because of the efforts of these two that you and I now have the chance to face the challenges of Zen practice and seek what they sought and found. We honor Bodhidharma for his dedication and for his selfless compassion. Like John Lewis, in our time, Bodhidharma and Hui-k'o didn't hesitate to make good trouble. They proved that the Buddha way is not far off, reserved for special people. At some point, we all wake to life's difficulties and challenges. This is our start. To find peace, all we need to do then, as Bodhidharma insisted, is bring forth our troubled mind so it can be pacified. That shouldn't be too hard to do, should it?